As we've done in the past, I'm going to start by running through a few points from Robert's rules to help ensure everybody has a refresher on the process for the meeting and to help us have a productive meeting. So motions. The purpose of making a motion is that the mover is asking the General Assembly to address the topic. Nothing is discussed without a first motion being made, unless there is a question and answer session. The person making or seconding a motion is not asking to approve the motion. They're simply asking the voting members to consider, discuss, and then vote on the topic. Once a motion is made, it needs a seconder. Once moved and seconded, the president will ask the assembly if there is any discussion, and after the discussion is complete, the assembly will vote on the motion. Technology and speaking. As noted, after a motion is made and seconded, we move to discuss it. I will ask that each member speak only once until all of the other members have had a chance to speak. If you would like to speak, you will use the Zoom hands up feature and not physically raise your hand. I also need you to identify yourself by name for Dorothy, our recorder. As per prior AGMs, we also manage the main mute function. Please keep yourself on mute until your time to speak or when we vote. If you don't have yourself on mute, we will be able to mute you if needed, so your noise does not negatively impact the meeting. Does anyone have any questions about how to mute or to raise your hand with Zoom? Ask now for everybody to mute themselves for the meeting to begin. Does anybody have any questions on that technology part? Don't see any. Voting. After motion is made and seconded, the discussion has concluded. I will call on the matter to a vote. I will first ask those who say yay, and at that time, I will need you to unmute yourself and speak. Then I will ask those who vote no to say your name, and those who vote no will speak. Are there any questions on this process? Okay. I don't see any questions, Meg, so I let everybody pause. We'll start at 1 EST sharp, and hopefully we get a few more people on for quorum.
Chris, that would be 7 p.m. EST.
Thank you. Getting lost in the time change. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, one question. Is everybody on Zoom or is anybody just on the phone?
I can't speak for everybody, Wayne. I think we have most people on Zoom. I'm sure there is 1 or 2 on the phone.
Yeah.
But there's also Zoom available on your phone. So if anybody is connected via their cell phone, there is an ability to connect through Zoom. So you can see us. We can see you if you want. And also you can raise your hand. So if you'd like to make that change, we still have about 6 minutes till we start. So feel free to do that. That's a great point, Wayne. Thank you.
Yeah. And who are the 3 support individuals?
Meg, can you weigh in on that?
Yes, they are involved with the French translation. We're doing a live French translation tonight. It'll be available on YouTube. So the English will stream on Facebook Live and French will stream on YouTube.
Thank you.
Chris, just to let you know that in a moment, we're going to start the Facebook live streaming just to get it ready and queued, just so that we're ready for 7 o'clock.
Great, thank you. The YouTube starts at the same time, Meg?
Yes.
Super. Oh, okay.
Ray, could you mute again?
Yes. Okay, Meg, see if we can keep this right on time. So I think we'll call the meeting to order, everybody, and officially welcome to our AGM. I call the 2022 Annual General Meeting to order at 7 p.m. EST. I think I have that right, Meg, now with the time change. We'll start the meeting. I'll hand it off to Meg to do our land acknowledgement, our roll call, and our confirmation of quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Welcome, everyone. So before we begin our agenda tonight, I'd like to start by respectfully acknowledging that Equestrian Canada is located on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence and stewardship of the Kpmg and its tributaries dates back to time immemorial and will continue in perpetuity. We honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this territory, and we acknowledge our shared responsibilities to ensure health and well-being for all creation for generations to come. Further, we respect and affirm the inherent and treaty rights of all Indigenous peoples in Canada. Our acknowledgement of the Algonquin Anishinaabe territory recognizes the oppressive history and current experience of colonization and is a reflection of our commitment to decolonize and to recognize and honor the pursuits of Indigenous nations and peoples' self-determination and sovereignty. So what we'll do, I'll begin now with the roll call. And what I would ask everyone to do is I'm going to read everyone's name as I go through category A, then B, then C. And if you could just come off mute and test your voice and just say here, and then you can put yourself back on mute. We'll work ourselves through the roll call. So I'm going to start with category A, equestrian sport disciplines. We'll begin with Martha Wirtz. Are you here? Okay. Wendy Christoph. Okay. Charlene Kostecki. Present. Karen Sparks. Not present. Decia Miller. Decia Miller. I know she was there earlier. Okay, we'll come back to her. Brenda Miner. Sue Carroll. Sue's there. Thank you, Sue. Pat Fruin Lord.
I'm here.
Thank you, Pat. Sue Fole.
I'm here.
Thank you, Sue. Category B, PTSOs. Adrian Smith.
Here.
Thank you. Jess Anstey.
Here.
Thanks. Nicole Duplessis.
Here.
Cindy Klassen.
Here.
Jason Edworthy.
Here.
Thank you, Jason. Danielle Blanc.
Here.
Karen Swanche.
Here.
Jerry Sweet.
Sorry, here.
Thanks, Jerry. Deborah Smith.
Here.
Perfect, thank you. Category C, National Equine Affiliates, Gilles Seguin.
Here.
Faith Robillard. Present. Joshua Shildroth.
I'm here, thanks.
Thanks, Josh. Dan Gall. Present. Nancy Kavanaugh. Not present. George Van Platten.
Here.
Thank you. Charlotte Nagy. Present. Caitlin Gaguric.
Here.
Thank you. And Janice Tyndall.
Here.
Okay, so I'll go through the board of directors of the current board. Chris Sorensen here.
Here.
Doug Orr.
Here.
Charles Q.
Here.
Wayne Burwash.
Here.
Chris Lowe. Present. Lisa Robertson.
Here.
Melanie Biron.
Here.
Rob Mitchell.
Here.
Carla Robin. She was there. She was here. We'll come back. I know I saw her earlier. Mark Goldman. Not present. And then we have our incoming board directors, John Gallinger,
Here.
Kelly Gravel. I think I saw her join. We'll do a check on the participant list as well. Jennifer Hodgson.
Here.
Thank you. And then we have Kirsten Giles.
I'm here.
Thanks, Kirsten. Gord Peterson.
I'm here.
Stephanie Parker for Canada.
Here.
Okay, excellent. So Chris, if you just give me one moment to ensure we have quorum.
Yep.
Jerry, can you just mute for 1 minute and check? Okay, Chris, we have 18 voting members, so we do have quorum. We needed 14. So that would be sufficient. The last thing that I was going to update on was the responsible reporting. Would you like me to touch base on that before you begin?
Yeah, let's give an update on that now and we'll double check our numbers for this meeting later.
Okay, and we'll continue to monitor those who join. So with the responsible reporting, we wanted to be able to share with the assembly just some general statistic participation for this meeting and for the last board year or the last year that we're looking at. So as we noted, we have 18 people in attendance today, so it's certainly lower attendance than we saw last year. Last year at the annual general meeting, we had 23 voting members, so there were 4 voting members missing. That was 1 from category A and 3 from C. Also this year in the director election, just to provide the statistics, we had 26 voting members out of 27 participate in the vote. So we did unfortunately miss one category C member who did not vote in time. But we wanted to be able to share these updates with the voting members in the assembly just to keep everybody aware of participation trends. So we'll continue to monitor the participant list and we'll update as more voting members join. So
I think it's very important for everybody to note the participation. It's going to be something that comes up in this meeting and moving forward with EC about the governance and really creating a governance structure that everybody sees value in participating in. So we want to make sure that we're checking that the system is working and we're getting something that people want to participate in. Voting members, voting on the board of directors is critically important, as well as attending the AGM. We'll just start, as we normally do with EC meetings, going over quickly some standards of conduct that we'd like everybody to understand as we move into the bulk of the meeting. So we welcome comments, questions, and opinions. However, we require that conduct be respectful and professional. Unwelcome actions, including rude or harsh verbal, written, or body language, cutting people off, yelling, or acting with aggression or inappropriate behavior, is not appropriate. In order to make this a safe, welcoming space for everyone in attendance and for those watching on Facebook Live, as well as on Facebook, we will remove any individuals of unwelcome actions are experienced. We very much hope to have a constructive and solution-oriented meeting today and look forward to getting started. So the next meeting, or the next point on our agenda is number C, the approval of the agenda. The first item today, you've received a draft agenda on August 29th. I will ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as received, with one change, and that is G, which is the introduction of Sport Canada. Stephanie Parker will follow the president's remarks. So we're adding Stephanie to the agenda. Sorry, we missed that. Does somebody want to make the motion and second the motion?
Jerry Sweet here. I'll move that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Jerry. The
And
second.
Val, I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Hearing none, as moved by Jerry and seconded by Sue, I ask for the voting members to vote to approve the agenda as corrected. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All that vote no, please state your name. Hearing none, Meg, the agenda is adopted. That moves us on to item D of the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the 2021 AGM. We will move to approve those minutes. The draft minutes for the 2021 AGM were circulated also on August 29th. We have not received requests for corrections in advance of today's meeting. Are there any other corrections from the members who were present at the 2020 AGM? Any corrections we've missed from anyone? I don't see any. So I will ask for a voting member who was present at the 2021 AGM to make a motion to approve the AGM minutes as read. Anybody to move in second?
So moved.
I can
Jill.
second that.
Jill, and sorry, I think that was Cindy second.
Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy. Any discussion on the minutes? All that vote in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, please state your name. The minutes are approved. This moves us on to our president's report. That's me. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to our third virtual AGM. This year, our AGM is available both in English and in French. So if you're watching in English and your preference is French, please follow the links to our YouTube for a real-time French translation. Everybody's presence today demonstrates your commitment, passion, and dedication to our sport, industry, and the path that EC is on. Your role at the AGM is a critical part of EC governance. Please allow me to start with some thank yous. First, to our staff, who continue to work hard every day to make EC, our community in Canada, stronger and our organization more efficient and surmount the many challenges we face in doing so. Second, to our volunteers who sit on the board, on our board committees and our operational committees, who represent the Equestrian Committee as your voting members. Thank you to our affiliates and our partners for joining us on our path. I would like to specifically thank our two officers, Lisa Robertson, VP1, and Charles Q, VP2, who spend considerable time working with me to lead the board and the organization. I would like to thank the three outgoing directors, Doug Orr, Carla Robin, Mark Goldman, and the complete board for this year's term. I'd also like to say a special thanks to Dorothy Shaw, who has taken our minutes for EC for many, many years on board meetings, committee meetings, and our AGMs, and retires this year. So, where is EC at? It was with great pride that I host this meeting for the entire community this year. The reports that were sent out are extremely detailed, but I'll try to give an overview of EC activities. The past year was a juggling of recovering and ensuring that EC emerges stronger from this crisis. We worked on stabilizing and strengthening our ops team, led by Meg, our CEO. Great effort has been made to make sure we can keep our talented and valued employees and to attract new talent to the organization. Our ops team worked tirelessly on many projects, as you can see in the report. Our operational strength has allowed the board to fully move into a governance role. Fully moving into governance role is critical for any highly functioning organization, but also critical for our funding partners within our sports system. This allows us to ensure the funding comes to the industry through all of our affiliates as well as possible. World class is what the board is committed to. Best in sport practices is what we're working towards. Board committees, nominations, ran a successful election. HR worked on fair market salaries. Governance, brought in a governance consultant, which we'll touch on later. And the strategic planning committee completed our strategic planning for the years to come. Finance managed all of our financials through a difficult time and created stability within the organization. Last year, I started the AGM by saying that EC faced massive challenges. Now I can confidently say that EC is facing those challenges head on. We still face a decline in the sport. We have bounced back from COVID and the difficult times that EC faced during those years, but we have not regained to pre-COVID levels, and we are still on the trajectory of decline that has been present for the last decade in equestrian sport. Other new external challenges have come about: the economy, the cost of living, interest rates. We still need to ensure that EC is growing, is giving value, is inclusive, there's diversity, equity, and enjoyment, and that we are providing a safe sporting environment. The AGM is a great forum to have a frank conversation and update our voting members on where we're at. So what has EC been doing? COVID, a lot of financial management, government support. The EC has been extremely proactive in engaging government support on many fronts to support our community. We've supported our community through large grants from both Sport Canada and Ag Canada in partnership with our PTSOs. We've been nimble to adjust to the working remotely, invested in training our staff, and continued to work to restart the sport. We've gone through the EHV crisis. EC's continued to roll out programs, coach status, safe sport, EC national rankings, national championships bid by different organizers and held last year in Calgary, the national noseband pilot, the Tokyo Olympics, and a Learn To review. EC's done projects. We've completed the Canadian Equine identification discovery phase. Strategic planning was finished, coming to a close with Vision 2030 and Strategy 2025. EC implemented IT with vacation tracking and HR software. HR initiatives, as Meg covered, from disconnecting from the workplace, employee recognition, gender equality bursaries that were both applied for and received the grant by EC and matched for the other employees by EC. We also had some significant new hires in the team. In the volunteer department, onboarding procedures were developed to ensure information sharing and quality of experience of our volunteers so that the value, efficiency, and the information and knowledge they provide can be a great experience. Well, how do we do all that? I think the big word is planning. We built strength on the operational team, and we built strength on the governance side of the organization. We built trust between the two pieces of the organization. We did this in collaboration. I think the big thing that we did this year is we went to the root causes. We really dug deep to see what makes EC tick and see what makes problems. We've created a North Star on what EC wants to be, Vision 2030. We've created a map to start getting to that North Star, Strategy 2025. These will be rolling out this fall. EC has been very proactive in grants to make sure we could keep the organization afloat. Return to Sport support from Sport Canada, traceability project from Ag Canada, also support the herd through Ag Canada with the PTSOs. Governance review grant from the COC. We are happy to announce that the governance review will be back on board with the COC funded grant backed by the COC. Targeted completion is the AGM 2023, which means we are anticipating to bring bylaw vote changes next year at the AGM. There will be large communication back and forth about this to come. A consultant has been confirmed. A public process that took place, be it an RFP, was completed from May to September. We will begin work on September 23rd, 2022, and more information will follow. So what's the goal? Well, we need to create value at all levels of engagement for EC, sport license holders, all of their support teams, coaches, officials, organizers, facilities, our partners, our affiliates, our funding partners, the entire sport industry and community. We need to make sure being part of our community, EC membership needs to come with value and it needs to come with pride. So in conclusion, we're starting to do what we talked about. EC is starting to walk the walk, even if sometimes it looks like crawling. We're moving forward. There's still a long path and we need to work together and collaborate, sharing ideas, knowledge, experience from volunteers and employees. But EC is doing what it committed. We are doing it transparently and accountably, and we're not pretending we're perfect. We have challenges. Diversity is a strength and a challenge. Change is hard, and we can't make everybody happy. But we have to evolve to survive. The previous path was the more treacherous path, not the safer one. Sport is more competitive for athletes, funding, and eyeballs. We have a transition, and staying stagnant was leading to a slow decline and a disaster. External pressures like welfare, social license, economic, and pandemics, these are all part of our environment right now. Coach licensing in safe sport is a worldwide new reality in many sports and many countries. EC, in the end, is united by our love of horses. We come together for each other, through each other, and for the horses. We have to rise to the occasion. Vision 2030 is a North Star of where we are going, and our survival depends on coming together, finding commonality and efficiencies of working together with a solution orientation. But EC is ready. I can truly say after 5 years of being involved with EC that I believe EC is better positioned than ever before to fill the role we all want it to play and is supposed to play as an organization in our sport, industry, and community. It is not there yet, but it has a path and it has a team that can make it possible. I believe EC is sitting on the precipice of great things with great potential if everybody comes together to see it through. EC in the end is people. People with opinions, people with different lived experiences and expertise, people with different struggles and strengths, people that can get hurt or get helped, but people that are passionate, people that are ready to make this a reality, people fostering a love of horses and sport for life. So thank you, everybody, and welcome to the AGM. That moves us on to opening remarks. I covered a lot of it in my opening comments, but what we're really here to do is to receive and go over last year's financial year. I will remind everybody that that is from April 1, 2021 till March 31, 2022. So keep in mind that we're talking about last year. That moves us to introducing letter G, Introduction of Sport Canada, and Stephanie Parker. I would like to thank Stephanie, the Senior Program Analyst and Programs Division at Sport Canada, for joining us today. And Stephanie is going to share a few words with us.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm very happy to be the program analyst for Equestrian Canada. Since taking the file on, I've seen lots of very positive changes. And every time I speak to the organization, you guys have a lot of going on, and it's great to see everything moving forward. I do look forward to keeping working with the organization, and if ever there are any questions, you could go through the office and they could reach me directly, and I hope I'm in a position to answer those questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie, very much. So we're moving along quite quickly, but I will try to keep everybody with us. That moves us to H in our agenda, which is the report of the Finance and Audit Committee. So I'm going to hand that over to Rob Mitchell, our Chair of Finance.
Thanks very much, Chris, and hello and good evening to everyone. The financial statements, the audited financial statements, and the report of the Finance and Audit Committee have been distributed. So I'm just going to hit some of the highlights of that. Just bring a few of the items to your attention. So Chris described this year, or the last fiscal year, as a year of recovery from COVID. You can certainly see that in the financial statements and the statement of operations. We have total revenue of almost 7.4 million versus 4.5 million the previous year, which was pretty much a shutdown year. So activity level has increased dramatically. What of note, I think, is sport license fees, which is a barometer of some of the activity, is up to 2.1 million from 1.4 the previous year, almost a 50% increase, and close to levels immediately before the pandemic. Also, it was an Olympic year, and you can see in the financial statements, we have increased government revenue and expenses associated with the Olympics. And there is a line item noted as in-kind contribution and in-kind expenses, which are new to the financial statements this year. This refers to Olympic expenses that were direct Olympic expenses that were picked up by the COC and the CPC, expenses that were paid on our behalf. The level of government funding is separated into basically regular government spending and COVID related, which has been substantial and helpful. Of note is, as described in our annual report, is the Canada Recovery Fund, which we received $577,000. Actually received after year end, but it was booked during the last fiscal year. These funds will be utilized for a number of programs, including recovery of some of the higher expenses related to the Olympics and Paralympics, plus initiation and rebooting of some programs. The bottom line is we had a small deficit last year, 164,000, in contrast to a very large surplus the previous year of 457,000, which reflected a much lower level of activity. So with that, I'd just like to introduce Kirsten Giles from Kpmg. Kirsten has for a number of years been the lead on our audit, and she can report on that to you.
Great. Thanks so much for the introduction, Rob, and good afternoon or evening, everyone. On behalf of Kpmg, I'm pleased to present our audit report, which comprises the first 3 pages of the annual financial statements. We conducted our audit in June and July of this year, and were able to provide a clean or unmodified audit opinion, which once again, in these still somewhat uncertain times, is a credit to the organization as a whole in its dedication to its financial reporting. I'll read this unmodified or clean audit opinion, which can be found on the first page under the opinion heading, which states, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the organization as of March 31st, 2022, and its results of its operations, its changes in net assets, and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. I would like to close by saying that we do appreciate your continued faith in us as your trusted advisors, and I'll pass it back to Rob. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kirsten. We do require a motion for the acceptance of the audited financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2022.
I'll move.
Jill,
Janice,
so
I'll
moved.
move.
I'll second that. Jill.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? I'll let Chris call the question.
I don't see any questions, Rob. I think the motion is actually just that the voting members have received the financials.
Yes.
And received the auditor's report. So I don't
Correct.
see any discussion. I don't think we actually need a vote. Meg, is that correct?
Correct. The legal requirement is for the board of directors to approve the audited financials, which they did at the August board meeting, and that they are circulated and received by the voting members at the annual general meeting.
Okay. So with that in mind, Rob has answered the floor for questions. Is there any questions regarding either the financials or the audited financials? This would be your time for those questions. Any questions from the voting members? Okay. Hearing none, then I guess we will keep going. Thank you, Rob, very much. And Kirsten also. I think that means we let you go. And thank you very much for all your work, and we really appreciate it. That moves us on to J, the appointment of the auditor. Rob, I'll hand that back to you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. The Finance Committee has recommended to the board, and the board also recommends that we reappoint Kpmg as our auditors for the current fiscal year.
Somebody like to make the motion to select Kpmg again for next year?
I would do so. Jerry Sweet.
Thank you,
I'll
Jerry.
second it, Gilles.
Thank you, Gilles. So any discussion or questions on that auditor? Seeing none, all those that vote yay, please say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yay.
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 Any of those opposed, please state your name. Hearing none, Meg, that passes. Thank you very much, Rob. Okay, we have no bylaw changes this year for K, so we move on to L, which is the question period. In this section, we discussed the questions from the categories, and those have been brought forward by the categories on behalf of the equestrian community. The questions were requested by September 12th. We received 4 questions from category A and no questions from category B or C, and we will answer those questions now. So our first question summarized was, there's an expression of need of improvement for the core functions of EC, customer service, expediency, and responding to inquiries of servicing people who want to purchase or review sport licenses officials. The opinion is that the competitors are moving to provincial events to avoid costs and lack of service, and a thought that EC could better adapt programs from organizations instead of building new. Comment also focused on centers of excellence within agriculture in Canada and the government to leverage, and an opinion that the rules needed a revision. So the main questions there, or are there any structural changes being made to EC to ensure the core functions are being addressed in a timely fashion and the client feels valued? And are there any initiatives to prioritize activities to ensure core functions are addressed effectively? So I think that to answer this question, these issues of service have been around as long as I've known EC, to be frank with you. And every time we dig into an issue, we seem to find another. EC had not invested in programs or IT or pathways for decades before we got involved. And this board, in cooperation with the ops team and through the strategic committee and task forces that operated last year as committed at the last AGM, really dug deep, in my opinion, to, what are the root causes? Why has this stuff been nagging us for so long that we keep talking about it and talking about it? And where are the real issues? Why are EC and PTSOs perceived to be competitors in competitions rather than partners? Why don't sport licenses feel valuable? What is the organization's actual mandate? What is it stated? What could it be? Is it too big? Is it too small? How are we going to succeed at all of this? And out of that came, the board's strategic planning of where we want to go, which will be Vision 2030, and how we're going to get there, Strategy 2025, which gets rolled out this fall. But we started building already, to answer the question of whether we've done anything. A new PTSO fees have been addressed. New affiliate forms have been addressed. We've shifted departments internally within Meg's operation team. There's been new staff brought on to help address this. The board has gotten smaller. And these are some of the steps that the board has taken, and I'll let Meg in a second get deeper into what the operational team has done to address these specific points. But I think the real point is that in this time over COVID, we really took the time to find the root. We started from the root of these problems to build, not surface fixes. So I think what we're talking about in terms of our customer experience, our sport license holder experience, we're not there yet. But the truth is, the root causes of why we're actually having these problems and talking about them for decades have been identified and have been started to be addressed in a very consequential and very holistic way. And the plan and the path has been built to really correct these things, but it's going to take time. We've started right at the core from the board and from the operational team structure and from the governance and all of these key pieces that when we really dug to the bottom, that's where a lot of these problems started. So that has been mapped and a path has been built forward, and we need to build to the point where there's value and great service for all of our customers. But the time has been taken to really figure out why this has dogged us for so long. So Meg, I want you to have a chance to dive into that question further if you want to, but I think that's what the board has really done. I know this has been a question for a while, and we didn't want a surface solution anymore.
And so to Chris's point, the board has worked very hard over the last 18 months on building the strategic plan or strategy 2025 and vision 2030, and have been working closely with task force committees and also staff ourselves. So from that perspective, now that we have the plan in place, we have the plan that has been handed to us. We've built out the objectives and preliminary key results. So over the next, from September until December, a lot of the points that are noted in that question around rule revision and all of the different components around membership modernization, value add, the competition pathway, et cetera, we're mapping all of those out into very specific operational tactics and initiatives that we're going to undertake over the next 3 years in order to deliver on that plan. And so what that's going to mean, and what we've started internally with our team, is to do our start, stop, pause, continue exercises. We're going to also be working very closely with our operational committees to identify some of the critical or key areas that we can, as an organization, focus on that are going to deliver the greatest amount of value, as opposed to having a broader approach, trying to cover everything. We can't be everything to everyone, but we can be something excellent to the most critical components that we're facing within our membership. So those pieces are starting, and then just to build on to that, we've also developed a capital campaign, which we are going to launch in 2023. It's something that I don't believe the organization has focused on in the past, but one of the key areas within Strategy 2025 is expanding our revenue base. So building a 30% increase in terms of the revenue that we have today and the revenue that we want to be achieving or generating every year. So that capital campaign is really designed to start to create the funds to address some of these core issues, so we can have our regular operations team building and servicing and working on the areas of improvement from an operational perspective, customer service, member care, competitions, high performance, et cetera. And then concurrently building this capital campaign that will help us deliver a better automation, modernizing our membership, invest in training our leaders, whether it's staff, committees, coach developers, officials, developers, et cetera, and then build ourselves towards the organization that the plan has unfolded. So it's not an answer for tomorrow, but I can assure that every point that was in that question have been brought forward and mapped out, and are being mapped out along the way. And the strategy 2025 takes us from January 2023 until the end of 2025, and we'll be setting our key results, objectives, initiatives, and tactics that will help us deliver on that.
Thank you, Meg. I think that's a great question, and I hope that provided everybody with some information on how we're addressing it, but also a really frank answer on the fact that we also would like to hear the end to that question and hear that everybody's getting a great experience at EC. So we're really planning towards that. The next question we had is, can you provide numbers related to the discipline and how the numbers are arrived at? We have referenced that the sport is in decline for some time, And I think the question is about where are those numbers coming from. To give you a much longer answer than we will give on this call, there is a 90-page report that is public on our competition review that was done a couple of years ago, and an incredible amount of data was accumulated by that committee and brought forward from that committee unanimously from all stakeholder groups to the board. So there's a complete report on this if you would like to read it, the competition review. But I think we referenced earlier that EC has bounced back a little bit from COVID. We're up 11% over COVID year last year, but we're still down 5% from pre-COVID. And that kind of fits with our declining trend over the last 10 years from the competition review, which is that the sport was shrinking 2 to 3% a year. But I think Meg can give some more specifics on that. Meg, can you give a little more detail that we talked about for the numbers?
Yep, absolutely. So it's a little different, even though we're looking at the last fiscal year, so fiscal year ending in March 31, the way our membership numbers or sport license numbers run is based on calendar year. So I'm just going to speak a little bit to 2021 calendar year and then 2022 calendar year. So as Chris noted, in 2021, we were down quite a bit compared to in 2019, we were over 16,000 sport license holders. The number is 16,300. COVID during 2020, we were down to about 13,500. And last year in 2021, we bumped up to 15,000. I'm sorry. In 2022, we bumped up to 15,535. So 2020 and 2021 were both around that 13,000 level. So there is some really positive growth. We're definitely seeing participation increasing. Some of the discipline growth that was marked, I can give a few stats for the current year for 2022. Hunter jumper is up 10%. Dressage is up 17%. Eventing is up 8%. Breed sports are up 14%. General performance is up 12%. Western performance is down 6%. Vaulting is up 55%. Reining up 14%. Para is down 10%. Endurance is down 6%. Driving is up 42%. Gymkhana is the same, so there hasn't been any change between 2022 and 2021. And then the last trail, recreation, and trek is down 7%. So as Chris mentioned earlier, overall, we're up 11%. We still have some ground to cover. The 2022 numbers are year to date, so we still have a little bit of time before that year to date is closed. So it's possible that we could catch up further on that. But again, to Chris's point, Strategy 2025 really looks much further in terms of not only meeting 2019 sport license holders, but growing much further beyond that. So although the trend is very positive that we're getting back to pre-COVID levels, we still have a lot of work to do to continue to build our base.
Thank you, Meg. Our next question was about hunter rules. And the summary of the question is basically, would there be a consideration for a proposal to have the translated scorecard given to each participant? The following are a few of the benefits that would be derived from a scorecard system, helping the riders know where they lost points. Judges would be more accountable for their scoring, promote increased interest in the hunters. Would we consider adding an additional second judge for each division? And a decreased sense of unfairness among riders, making competitions more fun for all. So I think this is one of the keys to EC is to make it very efficient and effective and excellent. And to do that, we need to take feedback like this, but we really need to make sure this feedback is coming to the organization in the correct way and in the most appropriate location to be effective for our members and see the changes that our community would like to have. So normally this kind of question should go through the discipline committee to look at it and see where we could make adjustments. But this is a great example to use for how complex EC can be and how we can better serve our stakeholders by placing their questions in the right way. But this question also highlights EC's role. EC's events focus on a fair and safe competitive environment. EC sanctioning needs to stand for and be recognized for the fairness as it is now, but that value needs to be promoted so that it is very beneficial as an organizer to run an EC event. And EC officials, EC judges, they also carry significant value, known for their professionalism and their fairness and transparency. So it's quite critical that these assets of the organization are promoted, so that our judges, officials, and event organizers see that value, and our stakeholders realize our priority of a safe and fair environment. That all ties into safe sport, to the rules, to everything. It also highlights the complexity of issues at EC. When you start to get into hunter rule changes, you start dealing with the reciprocal agreement with the US, as all of these hunters move from a local grassroots level up to hunters that are competing across different provinces across into the US. It also starts to deal with the complexity of provincial competitions and how we make sure all of that is working together. 2 judges, for example, adds a great expense to the horse shows, and we need to make sure that we don't create barriers to people participating, and we make sure everything is accessible in our sport. So great ideas. Also need to look at what the unintended consequences are. We also need to figure out what the differences between perceived unfairness versus real unfairness, and ensuring that we know that the competitions are fair and we have professional, licensed and certified coaches that are informing everybody of the rules and how those competitions are going on. There are solutions out there, and it is something we can look at. So I do encourage this feedback to come forward. You can look at examples like dressage, where they start to have different scoring systems that are live, and the spectators can participate in. So there's definitely solutions to look at. But I think this is a great example of where we take feedback from the community and hopefully can do something valuable with it. Meg, did you want to expand on that question at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you did a great job covering it. I think this is a really great question. We're very open to hearing these types of questions and this type of feedback, particularly around how we can incorporate automation and technology into our competition. And so I think that that's something that is really appropriate. It also ties into the strategy 2025 and some of the key objectives that are within that. So what I would recommend is that I pull this and bring it forward to our operational jumping committee and have them look at this question as well. And we'll continue to build it forward with them and our IT team as well.
Thank you, Meg. So that concludes all of the questions that were put forward by the voting members. I think we've hopefully given some complete answers, but I would like to highlight that, you know, EC is really open to feedback through different pathways, considering what that feedback is about. But we really want the community to feel like they can communicate directly with us, and would encourage everybody to do that year round. So again, that's all of our questions for now, but please communicate with us. Please tell us and give us feedback. We are open to it, and we are looking to improve. So that wraps up our questions section for now. That moves us along in our itinerary to M, new director introductions. So first, I would like to ask Wayne Burwash, who was our nominations chair of the committee and board observer, to share any insights or updates on the election process this past year.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, and as Chris said, I'm chair of the nominating committee, and I'm a non-voting member of the committee, just to chair. The committee is made up of 6 members, 2 selected from each category, categories A, B, and C. And so and they're responsible for recruiting well-qualified candidates for directors, and then subsequently through their CVs and the interview process, they're responsible for vetting the candidates and then moving them on to the ballot for voting by the categories, by the excuse me, by the 27 members of the category. So to Chris's point earlier about the board moving more to a governance body and getting out of operations like it should be, and leaving the operations to Meg and her staff, we're very well qualified to do that. So that's what the goal of the nominating committee has been. And they work very hard at both recruiting and vetting these candidates to move them forward to the ballot and have people selected that have the skill set and the qualifications that are needed on a governance body. So I must compliment both the nominating committee and the 27 voting members on the categories in this process. I think it's working very well. And I must say, I'm very impressed with the 3 candidates that were elected and will move forward to being the 3 new directors on the board. So anyhow, it's my, excuse me, it's my pleasure. Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce the 3 new candidates. And so I'll introduce them one at a time and just give them a couple of minutes to maybe talk about themselves and give us a little bit of background. So first, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Hudson. She's a wealth management expert with about 20 years of experience in risk management and strategic planning, as well as wealth management. And her involvement has been in the 100-jumper circles with the horse. So Jennifer, I don't see on the screen, but I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Wayne. And thanks for the introduction. And I can't share enough how pleased I am to be part of this great organization and being able to contribute back to a sport and to the animals that I love so much. So on top of my professional background, I've spent, since I'm 10 years old, had a lifelong passion for horses as a rider, working in the horse industry. I thought at a young age that I would make a career in the horse industry, but that was not feasible. And I certainly didn't have the family to support my passion for horses. So I pursued other directions in economics and in finance. As Wayne mentioned, I'm currently the Chief Executive Officer for Raymond James Trust in Canada. I've spent most of my career in banking and finance and brokerage firms. And at this point in my career, I've moved from being a rider, and I have a daughter who is passionate about horses. Horses changed her life, gave her purpose. They're amazing animals, and we have a few of them at home. My daughter has since pursued her education and isn't riding as much anymore, but I say now I'm an owner. I have young horses. We have just recently sold our Grand Prix horse, but this opportunity for me is really a milestone in my career, not just as a professional, but as a horse lover, and to be able to give back to the sport, to the organization, and also to help promote horse sports in Canada. So really pleased to be on this board and looking forward to working with everybody over the next 3 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, I'd like to introduce Kelly Gravel. She's a lawyer, been very involved with municipal law and family law. Her forte tends to be in communication and collaborative resolution of issues. And so some skills that the board really needs, and her involvement with horses has mainly been through the eventing discipline. So Kelly, I'll leave it to you to go on from there.
Thank you, Wayne. I'm not on a stakeout. I am in my vehicle, but I am stopped. I'm just en route to a concert in Toronto. So thank you very much. I am very pleased to be joining the EC for this next 3 years. As Wayne indicated, I'm the legal director for the city of Greater Sudbury. So I have about more than 20 years as a lawyer, primarily in governance and in the municipal sphere. I am coming to the board from the Ontario Eventing Association. I'm their current chair and have learned a tremendous amount. I'm a parent of a rider, not a rider, so probably a lawyer first. So hopefully my skill set will be helpful to the board, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And the final person I'd like to introduce is John Gallinger. He is a chartered accountant, past president of the Standardbreds Canada, is currently very involved in horse racing integrity and safety, and has had extensive board experience and not-for-profit type organizations in finance and governance, as well as, of course, tremendous horse experience with Standardbred. So, John, I'll let you take it from there.
Thanks, Wayne. I was just making sure I was off of mute. Well, like Jennifer and Kelly before, I'm really excited to be named to the board. I'm really looking forward to getting engaged with the group. By way of a short introduction about me, I live in Richmond Hill, Ontario, with my wife and 3 children. We have a boy and twin girls. They're all high school aged. As Wayne alluded to a little bit, I'm a finance and technology executive. I've worked as a CEO and as a chief technology officer. I've been very fortunate that in my professional and board career, I've had the pleasure of working, within the equine sector, with national and provincial sport organizations, and national membership organizations, all of which I think will allow me to bring some experience to the EC board. Once upon a time, I sat on EC's Industry Development Committee, and that was during my tenure when I was CEO of Standardbred Canada. And, I really remain drawn to EC's mandate of, serving a national membership, growing participation, driving excellence through the LTED model, and just the general focus on equine welfare and safety. So I'm, heard a little bit about the strategic plan 2025, vision 2030. I'm, looking forward to learning more about that, getting engaged with the team, learning from others, and hopefully contributing based on my skills and past experiences. I'll turn it back over to you, Wayne.
Thank you, John. Okay, well, that's great. I'm sure you'll all agree that we have some very exciting new directors. I think they've got big shoes to fill with us losing Chris and Carla and Doug and Mark. And anyhow, very much look forward to working with the 3 and continuing with the progress that Chris has talked about, that I think our board is making great strides. I know we got some big hurdles still, but anyhow, I look forward to great things. So thank you 3 for joining, and back to Chris.
Thank you, Wayne, and welcome to the new board members. Very excited to have you already, let alone after hearing your introduction. So amazing skill sets, and really appreciative of everybody putting their name forward. Meg has told me that Lisa's asked to address the voting members, but won't tell me what she's going to say. So I guess I hand it over to Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks, Meg, for not making me interrupt, because I thought I was going to have to interrupt our outgoing president. But that's why I did ask to speak. Chris has acknowledged the fact that Doug and Carla and Mark are done their terms or stepping back from their board duties. And he obviously didn't mention himself. And I just want to take an opportunity to thank him. He's been a board member since 2017, and I believe he's been an officer that entire time, which is a boatload of work, frankly, and especially during some really tumultuous times. He was a vice president and then stepped into the president's role a year and a half ago. His strategic vision, I can't express how integral it has been in terms of how he sees this organization moving forward in in a fundamentally new way and addressing some of the challenges we faced in the past. I worked with him on strategic planning committee a couple of years ago. I chaired it this year. He sat in on it. He helped recruit both of our CEOs, the last two CEOs, and I really just want to say thank you for the time. I know it's a challenge for you. You live in Europe, and so often you are on calls in the middle of your night or early in your morning. So we appreciate it. We will miss your creative vision and your strategic leadership. And I just wish you all the very, very best in your new life moving forward and your new family that you're expecting shortly. So thank you for your time, Chris.
Thank you thank you very much. It's very kind. So this is moves us to our adjournment. I would really like to again thank not just for this year, but for my entire time, the staff, the leadership team, Meg in particular. We've been through a lot together, both on the board and working through both sides of the governance and operations now. All of the volunteers that are absolutely critical to the organization, the officers and the board members. And really thank you to the outgoing board members and thank you to the new board members for relieving us. Very appreciated, and couldn't wish everybody more luck, and couldn't believe more that the organization has the potential we've always dreamed it has. So thank you again for your time today and for contributing to a constructive AGM. I think this might be a record. Meg thought I could maybe break a record today on a most efficient AGM, but I think I do think this is truly a testament to how well Meg and the operations team have communicated throughout the year, and feeling that the community is up to date and we're not coming to a head with information at the AGM, that information is flowing. And that's the kind of transparency and organization we've been working towards. So I truly think the AGM going smoothly is a reflection on all of them. So thank you to them. With nothing further to discuss, I wish everybody a wonderful week and adjourn the Equestrian Canada 22 Annual General Meeting. We are adjourned at 8:05 EST, if I'm correct. Thank you, Meg. Thank you, everyone.